have been punishing. First, it was the Wuhan virus pandemic. Then a war began in Ukraine. And let's turn our focus to Kenya, like Chinese hackers seem to be doing. A new report says that Kenya's government data is under attack. Chinese hackers are trying to gather government secrets, especially information related to loan repayments. That's right, loan repayments. If that seems odd, you must remember that Kenya is heavily indebted to China. In 2021, they owed Beijing over $7 billion. It has come down a bit since then, but China is still Kenya's biggest bilateral lender. Also a textbook example of China's debt trap diplomacy. And Kenya is learning it the hard way. The last few years have been punishing. First, it was the Wuhan virus pandemic. Then a war began in Ukraine, and all of this affected the global economy. Those shocks have hit the repayment capacity of indebted nations like Kenya. But China is a loan shark. It can be unforgiving and inflexible when it comes to debt. It refuses to take haircuts. In some cases, it defers payments, but doesn't really forgive them. It delays loan restructuring. It also wants to jump the queue and recover its money first. And now it seems that China has been resorting to espionage to secure its debt. Here's what this report says. Chinese hackers have been targeting Kenya since 2019. And who specifically are they targeting? The Office of the President, the Finance Ministry, the Foreign Ministry, the Defense, Information, Health, Land and Interior Ministries of Kenya, even Kenya's Counter-Terrorism Center. All of them have been a target. It's been a long campaign. It targeted almost every major Kenyan institution. Over the years, Chinese hackers have stolen information from every corner. What for? To figure out Kenya's debt repayment plans, to see how likely it was for Kenya to default. Because that is a major concern. Even though Kenya is one of the more stable East African economies, the Chinese debt burden is significant. This fiscal year, Kenya spent almost $800 million in Chinese debt repayment. That's a 50% increase since last year. It's one of the government's largest expenses, repaying Chinese debt. Most of the money was paid to the Export-Import Bank of China and China Development Bank, and both of these are state-controlled. Which brings us to the next point. Why are Chinese hackers looking at debt owed to the Chinese government? Are they some especially patriotic hackers? Or are they also controlled by the government? The report suggests the latter, that these hackers are controlled by Beijing. They're part of a group unofficially called backdoor diplomacy. And they're seen as an arm of the Chinese state. Their name is a giveaway, backdoor diplomacy. They hack targets to further Beijing's diplomatic goals. And the report we're talking about is based on data from two cybersecurity firms based in Slovakia and the US. Now here's something else that you should know. China using hackers to target countries is not news. But their usual targets are in Asia and the West, not in Africa. In that sense, the Kenya hacking is noteworthy. It shows how China can go to any lengths to get its money. Of course, Beijing denies all these charges. A government spokesperson has said, and I'm quoting, China is against irresponsible moves that use topics like cybersecurity to sow discord in the relations between China and other developing countries. China is a main victim of cyber theft and attacks and a staunch defender of cybersecurity. And what is Kenya's response? Well, they say this is not a first. Kenya's presidential office has said that they face, quote unquote, frequent infiltration